The Lord told Moses to give these instructions to the people of Israel. When you finally settle in the land I am going to give you, and you want to please the Lord with a burnt offering, or any other offering given by fire, the sacrifice must be an animal from your flocks of sheep and goats, or from your herds of cattle. When it is an ordinary burnt offering, a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, a free will offering, or a special sacrifice at any of the annual festivals, whoever brings it must also give to the Lord a grain offering of 2 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1 quart of olive oil. For each lamb offered as a whole burnt offering, you must also present 1 quart of wine for a drink offering. If the sacrifice is a ram, give 3 quarts of choice flour mixed with 2.5 pints of olive oil, and give 2.5 pints of wine for a drink offering. This sacrifice will be very pleasing to the Lord. When you present a young bull as a burnt offering or a sacrifice in fulfillment of a special vow or a peace offering to the Lord, then the grain offering accompanying it must include 5 quarts of choice flour with 2 quarts of olive oil, plus 2 quarts of wine for the drink offering. This will be an offering made by fire, very pleasing to the Lord. These are the instructions for what is to accompany each sacrificial bull, ram, lamb, or young goat. Each of you must do this with each offering you present. If you native Israelites want to present an offering by fire that is pleasing to the Lord, you must follow all these instructions. If any foreigners living among you want to present an offering by fire pleasing to the Lord, they must follow the same procedures. Native Israelites and foreigners are the same before the Lord and are subject to the same laws. This is a permanent law for you. The same instructions and regulations will apply both to you and to the foreigners living among you. The Lord also said to Moses at this time, "Give the people of Israel the following instructions. When you arrive in the land where I am taking you, you will eat from the crops that grow there. But you must set some aside as a gift to the Lord. Present a cake from the first of the flour you grind and set it aside as a gift, as you do with the first grain from the threshing floor. Throughout the generations to come, you are to present this offering to the Lord each year from the first of your ground flour." But suppose some of you unintentionally fail to carry out all these commands that the Lord has given you through Moses. And suppose some of your descendants in the future fail to do everything the Lord has commanded through Moses. If the mistake was done unintentionally and the community was unaware of it, the whole community must present a young bull for a burnt offering. It will be pleasing to the Lord, and it must be offered along with prescribed grain offering and drink offering, and with 1 male goat for a sin offering. With it, the priest will make atonement for the whole community of Israel, and they will be forgiven, for it was an unintentional sin, and they have corrected it with their offering given to the Lord by fire and by their sin offering. The whole community of Israel will be forgiven, including the foreigners living among you, for the entire population was involved in the sin. If the unintentional sin is committed by an individual, the guilty person must bring a 1-year-old female goat for a sin offering. The priest will make atonement for the guilty person before the Lord, and that person will be forgiven. This same law applies both to native Israelites and the foreigners living among you. But those who brazenly violate the Lord's will, whether native Israelites or foreigners, blaspheme the Lord, and they must be cut off from the community. Since they have treated the Lord's word with contempt and deliberately disobeyed his commands, they must be completely cut off and suffer the consequences of their guilt. One day, while the people of Israel were in the wilderness, they caught a man gathering wood on the Sabbath day. He was apprehended and taken before Moses, Aaron, and the rest of the community. They held him in custody because they did not know what to do with him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "The man must be put to death. The whole community must stone him outside the camp." So the whole community took the man outside the camp and stoned him to death, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Lord then said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, throughout the generations to come, you must make tassels for the hems of your clothing and attach the tassels at each corner with a blue cord. The tassels will remind you of the commands of the Lord, and that you are to obey His commands instead of following your own desires and going your own ways as you are prone to do. The tassels will help you remember that you must obey all my commands and be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that I might be your God, and I am the Lord your God. One day, Korah and Kohath conspired with Dathan and Abiram from the tribe of Reuben. They incited a rebellion against Moses involving 250 other prominent leaders, all members of the assembly. They went to Moses and Aaron and said, "You have gone too far. Everyone in Israel has been set apart by the Lord, and He is with all of us. What right do you have to act as though you are greater than anyone else among these people of the Lord?" When Moses heard what they were saying, he threw himself down with his face to the ground. Then he said to Korah and his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will show us who belongs to Him and who is holy. The Lord will allow those who are chosen to enter His holy presence. You, Korah, and all your members must do this. Take incense burners and burn incense in them tomorrow morning before the Lord. Then we will see whom the Lord chooses as His Holy One. The Levites are the ones who have gone too far." Then Moses spoke again to Korah. "Now listen, you Levites. Does it seem a small thing to you that the God of Israel has chosen you from among all the people of Israel to be near Him as you serve the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the people to minister to them? He has given this special ministry only to you and your fellow Levites, but now you are demanding the priesthood as well. The one you are really revolting against is the Lord. And who is Aaron, that you are complaining about him?" Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, but they replied, "We refuse to come. Isn't it enough that you brought us out of Egypt, a land flowing with milk and honey, to kill us here in the wilderness, and that you now treat us like your subjects? What's more, you haven't brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Are you trying to fool us? We will not come." Moses then became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept these offerings. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, and I have never hurt a single one of them." And Moses said to Korah, "Come here tomorrow and present yourself before the Lord with all your followers. Aaron will also be here. Be sure that each of you 250 followers bring an incense burner with incense on it, so you can present them before the Lord. Aaron will also bring his incense burner." So these men came with their incense burners, placed burning coals and incense on them, and stood at the entrance of the tabernacle with Moses and Aaron. Meanwhile, Korah had stirred up the entire community against Moses and Aaron, and they assembled at the tabernacle entrance. Then the glorious presence of the Lord appeared to the whole community. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Get away from these people so that I may instantly destroy them." But Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground. "O God, the God and source of all life," they pleaded, "must you be angry with all these people when only one man sins?" And the Lord said to Moses, "Then tell all the people to get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." So Moses got up and rushed over to the tents of Dathan and Abiram, followed closely by the Israelite leaders. "Quick," he told the people, "get away from the tents of these wicked men, and don't touch anything that belongs to them. If you do, you will be destroyed for their sin." So all the people stood back from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Then Dathan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrances of their tents, with their wives and their children and little ones. Moses said, "By this you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things that I have done, for I have not done them on my own. If these men die a natural death, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord performs a miracle and the ground opens up and swallows them and all their belongings, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have despised the Lord." He had hardly finished speaking the words when the ground suddenly split open beneath them. The earth opened up and swallowed the men, along with their households and the followers who were standing with them and everything they owned. So they went down alive into the grave, along with their belongings. The earth closed over them, and they all vanished. All of the people of Israel fled as they heard their screams, fearing that the earth would swallow them too. Then fire blazed forth from the Lord and burnt up the 250 men who were offering incense. The Lord said to Moses, Tell Eleazar to pull all the incense burners from the fire, for they are holy. Also tell him to scatter the burning incense from the burners of these men, who have sinned at the cost of their lives. He must then hammer the metal of the incense burners into a sheet as a covering for the altar, for these burners have become holy because they were used in the Lord's presence. The altar covering will then serve as a warning to the people of Israel. So Eleazar the priest collected the 250 bronze incense burners that had been used by the men who died in the fire, and they were hammered out into a sheet of metal to cover the altar. This would warn the Israelites that the unauthorized man, no one who was not a descendant of Aaron, should ever enter the Lord's presence to burn incense. If anyone did, the same thing would happen to them as what happened to Korah and his followers. Thus the Lord's instructions to Moses were carried out. But the very next morning the whole community began muttering again against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You two have killed the Lord's people." As the people gathered to protest to Moses and Aaron, they turned toward the tabernacle and saw that the cloud had covered it, and the glorious presence of the Lord appeared. Moses and Aaron came and stood at the entrance of the tabernacle. And the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from these people so that I can instantly destroy them." But Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground. And Moses said to Aaron, "Quick, take an incense burner and place burning coals on it from the altar. Lay incense on it and carry it quickly among the people to make atonement for them. The Lord's anger is blazing among them. The plague has already begun." Aaron did as Moses told him and ran out among the people. The plague indeed had already begun, but Aaron burned the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead until the plague was stopped. But 14,700 people died in that plague, in addition to those who had died in the incident involving Korah. Then because the plague had stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance of the tabernacle.